nine, eight, seven, six, five, four, three, two, one.
Hello and welcome to the Newchip Accelerator Q4 Online Demo Day Global Startup Conference. My name is Armando Vera Carvajal and I'm the Accelerator Director here at Newchip. We're so happy that you're joining us for day 4 of Demo Day, along with hundreds of other investors and entrepreneurs worldwide. If this is your first day or time ever attending one of our conferences here at Newchip, I want you to know that this is the biggest one that we've ever had. This whole week, we've had over 100 global startups from the Newchip Accelerator pitching to investors, telling the story, what they're all about this whole week. We've also had a wide diversity of industry panels and talks focused on addressing key topics, very, very important topics that are ever present in today's startup ecosystem. Now, without further ado, to kick off day 4, it's such an honor and pleasure to introduce a very special guest today who brings a powerful story and much needed perspective to entrepreneurship. So please give a big welcome to Piersten Gaines, founder and CEO of Pressed Roots. Piersten, it's so wonderful to have you here as a keynote. I know that so many entrepreneurs and investors worldwide will find inspiration in your story, so it's so good to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the really kind introduction.
Oh, absolutely. Before we jump right into it, I'd like to quickly share some details on your background for context with our global audience. You being a graduate of Columbia University and Harvard Business School, you Piersten Gaines have transformed the salon experience for women with highly textured hair. You're the founder and the CEO of Pressed Roots, a national chain of salons with highly skilled, highly trained stylists who know what texture hair needs to keep it healthy and make it gorgeous. You speak directly to the experience of women of color, providing a salon that respects their time and gives them not just great hair, but also a pampered, elite salon experience, replicable no matter where they travel. Pop-up salons sold out in major cities across the country before you opened your first flagship location in March this year, which is crazy given COVID-19. And you've maxed out capacity every weekend since you've opened during this pandemic. You're now currently scouting locations to open up your next 2 salons. What's fascinating is that Pressed Roots solves the ongoing salon problem for the 42 million American women with highly textured hair who currently have no salon to call home. Connect with Gaines on LinkedIn. I highly encourage it. She's a fantastic individual. To learn more about her plans to revolutionize hair care for women of color through Pressed Roots. Piersten, once again, thank you for being here today. To kick off this conversation, I would love for you to share with us your journey as an entrepreneur. I imagine that you've always wanted to be an entrepreneur, that you wanted to be a business leader. Tell us, what was that process like?
Yes. Thank you again for the introduction. And it's funny that you say that you imagine that this is something that I've always wanted to do. It's actually not. When I decided to start Pressed Roots, I was in business school. And I was on track to, I had a career prior to going to business school in luxury retail, merchandising, buying operations, and I was planning to stay in that. I already had secured my internship between my 2 years at Wayfair, and I was planning to stay in retail. And things changed, life changed. I was in business school and I had a lot of access to resources, entrepreneurial resources. I was reading cases every day about people who were seeing opportunities and acting on them and creating huge businesses that we know today, all from life experiences that they were having, problems that they saw in the market. And so because I had that perspective, I was at a time in my life when I was experiencing a huge problem personally. It came to my hair. I couldn't find a place to get my hair done. I saw there was a huge need for it. There was a huge gap in the market. I'd had issues getting my hair done throughout my entire life. I've actually lost my hair on 2 separate occasions. And it was always a struggle for me to find quality hair care. And when I got to Boston, that problem was just super pronounced for me. I couldn't find a place. Meanwhile, I had friends who were going to the local blowout bar, and it was just so easy for them. They could just walk in and know that they could find someone who could do their hair. And you know, I was jealous of it. Why can't I have a solution like this? I want to get my hair done. I want to know that I could go to a place, regardless of whose chair I sit in, I know that my hair is in safe hands. I know that I'm going to walk out with a beautiful hairstyle. I'm over here spending so much money on traveling to New York or going other places to get my hair done. If I had a place, I would pay a premium price if I could go to a place right here next to my school like this, like my classmates are. Right. And so I saw that huge gap in the market, and I started testing it. And here we are a couple years later with Pressed Roots.
I mean, that's incredible and amazing. And I always find it so compelling when somebody says, well, my plan was never to be an entrepreneur, especially when you're already building such an impressive career in retail with world-class brands. I think that situation that's very unique to some entrepreneurs where like they have that aha moment and it's like, I have this problem for which I can't find a solution. Why hasn't someone just done this already, right? And it's like a light bulb went up for you. But even then, textured hair is a pretty specific, some would say niche market. Out of any industries, verticals, or segments in this general industry, why did you choose to focus on this particular one, considering all the risks of starting something from the ground up?
So the reason I decided to focus on this niche, I wouldn't even really consider it a niche, just because when you look at the market, 65% of the market has textured hair. The global market has textured hair. Right. So there are a lot of people with textured hair. The issue is, and what I found out through doing a lot of research, is that they don't really teach textured hair in cosmetology schools. So the problem is huge. I thought I was alone when it came to that I lost my hair on 2 separate occasions. 50% of Black women experience hair loss at least once in their lives. At least once in their lives, 50%. That's a huge number. It's a huge problem. And so that's why I wanted to do something about it. I wouldn't say I'm recreating, I wouldn't say I'm starting something from the ground up just because there's a business model that already exists. Right. Like blow dry bars are all over the country. They're in every city across the country. And it's a common business model. So I actually don't think that it was something like I'm creating something brand new. I'm redesigning it. I don't know. I'm switching it up a little bit, so that the same model that everybody knows about, is just kind of repurposed for this demographic.
Exactly. And I think that's what I find so fascinating, that you didn't have to reinvent the wheel. You just identified a very clear need in the market for a very big addressable space, and you applied that and you gave it your own spin, right? Like you said, you would be willing to pay a premium to have that experience, to have that trust when it comes to hair. You know, like I can't speak for it myself because I don't have much, but you know, I have a sister, right, who's like extremely meticulous, and I can understand the journey and the level of trust that's required for that. So I think that's very, very fascinating about finding opportunity, creating value, as we like to say in the industry, in non-traditional segments of the market. In terms of fundraising, I think like we know it all too well that fundraising is a challenging process for everyone. And I know that raising capital from investors this particular year, 2020, with COVID-19 has presented an array of new factors and obstacles to consider. Tell me about the challenges that you faced in pitching Pressed Roots, this big opportunity to traditional investors, and what was it like getting them to understand this market that is relatively untapped and uncommon to the venture funding establishment that usually backs like tech deals?
Right. Yeah, it was interesting. Just like you said, fundraising is hard for anybody. It doesn't matter who you are, but especially when you are fundraising for a service, a product that, you know, there's a huge brick and mortar component to it. And just the model in general isn't something that a lot of venture capitalists are used to. They're not traditionally, you know, a lot of feedback that I received initially was, you know, can this give me 10x return? You know, and it can, absolutely it can. Like, there's no doubt that it can. You look at the projection, you see how our pop-ups did, you see how our first store is doing. It's clear it can, but it's hard for them to wrap their mind around just because it's not a typical deal that they do. And so, so there was a lot of education on my part when it came to pitching to investors, not only about the business model and about how much, you know, each store can make and how fast each store can go up, and, you know, when the store starts making money and all of that stuff. Besides that piece, you know, just about the product and the service that we're offering and why this market is so valuable, why this is a need. You know, there were a lot of questions just because a lot of the people who I was pitching to, they don't know about hair. They don't know about Black hair. They don't know about the culture around hair. There were so many things. And so, you know, I started doing pop-up shops in 2017. And I was really raising money to get this first flagship location open in 2019. So that's 2 years of pop-up shops in major cities across the country. I had to get a lot of proof in order to get a dime from investors, you know? And I understood that going in, just because it's not your typical model, but I needed to prove that this business model is one that can make money before I brought any money in. And so that's how I did it with the pop-up shops.
Yeah, no, and that's such a good point. I wanted to ask you sort of what that experience was like with the pop-up shop concept in, you know, Boston and across the country. 2 years is a lot of time to invest in the testing and validation of an emerging concept, right? What was that process like for you? Like setting up those pop-up shops, what kind of involvement and commitment did it require from you? And I imagine you were also working at the same time and going to school, or what was that like?
Yeah. Yeah, so at the beginning, I was going to school, and then, so I was living in Boston, and so that's where the first ones, I was in school. So the first pop-ups were in Boston. A lot in the salon industry, a lot of salons are closed on Sundays and Mondays. And so what I found out really early on was to do a pop-up shop. We needed salon space just because we needed to use the shampoo bowls. And just logistically, it's a lot easier. There's already, you know, chairs already there, mirrors already there, just the infrastructure for a salon, you know? And so I would rent out salon space on Sundays because a lot of salons are closed on those days, and turn it into press roots for the day. And I had a stylist that I met while I was in Boston who was really amazing. I had her create a training video, and that's the video that we used to train all of our stylists in Boston. When we went to Atlanta, we trained all the stylists in Atlanta on that same video. And then it wasn't until Dallas where we started developing the actual like training program. So, but back to Boston, the first pop-ups that we set up, we had the stylists set up that do that training video that trained all the stylists, got them on the same accord, the same page of how the salon was going to run. How, you know, what our expectations were about what our customer promise was in terms of like how fast we need to get people in and out, how we want people to be treated, you know, the experience that we wanted to create, all of that, just got people on the same page with that. You know, chose a product line that was really, that really aligned with our customers and the feedback that I had received about the perfect products that people like. And what works the best with the style that we're trying to create, the blowout. And, you know, we did we implemented a few things to make it press roots that are like a little proprietary in terms of the way we set up the booking and like the way people we determine the process, all of that stuff, and then yeah, and everything about each of those pop-ups was a little bit different. We tested everything about the model throughout each pop-up. We tested the pricing, we tested how we paid the stylist, we tested different aspects of the experience, the products that we use. We literally tested everything about the model, how we book people, you know, how long, how much time between each appointment do we book, you know, what makes the most sense operationally, how can we get the most money, you know, everything, how we market it. Literally every single pop-up was like a test experiment to figure out what was the best model, which is another thing that investors really liked, because by the time not only had we proven that this concept was a need and that, you know, people would pay for it and that there was a high, just a high demand for it, but also that we've been testing everything about the business model. So literally all we needed was a salon, a space, and we'd be making money.
I mean, that's incredible. And I think what really resonates from what you've just said is that there was a lot of testing. And I think that's so critical because before you go big, before you start to like push it out there into the mainstream, you have to apply that rigorous and iterative process of actually testing and validating to see how does this work? And if it works, how can we optimize it and make it the best possible experience so that by the time that investors are essentially handed off the opportunity, they're like, I'm in, right? No ifs, no buts, but it's like, wow, I'm in, I'm good to go. Tell me a little bit more about some of the business model assumptions that you had to make in order to convince investors that this could be like a 10x opportunity over the next few years.
So the main thing is the pace that we're growing, you know, that's really what it is. So we want to be at 50 locations in less than 10 years.
Yeah. No, and in terms of sort of like the amount that your customers would be paying was like, you mentioned earlier that you wanted to have a premium experience. How does that currently align with what the industry currently offers?
So our price point, so we're actually, our price point, the average order is about $79 for a blowout. So when you are looking at some of the big blowout bar brands, their blowouts are $45. We're $80, you know, but which is one of the reasons why education was a huge component of what I did when I was pitching and when I'm talking to investors, because while $80 seemed a lot to a lot of these investors, and a lot of people, when I talk to a lot of my friends about blowouts that aren't with textured hair, that aren't women of color, they think that's crazy. You know, they think $45 is a lot for a blowout. When I heard that blow dry bar or dry bar that it was $45 for, I had never in my entire life gotten my hair done for $45 ever. Yeah. And that is such an interesting dynamic, because so going back to your question, when it comes to this demographic, they're used to spending, their average price point for a silk press, a silk blowout is $75. When I was living in New York, I was consistently spending $110 for a silk blowout. And so that's normal for this demographic. So we're like right in line with what is expected, but the experience is elevated. So because we're guaranteeing that you're going to be in and out in under 2 hours, when this demographic is used to spending between 4 to 5 hours on average for a single style, because we're offering the champagne, the mimosas, the green juice, you know, the supreme customer service and the experience, that's the elevated experience that we're offering. So people feel like they're getting way more than what they're paying for when they come to Press Reach, which is one of the reasons why we have those people who are coming back every single week. We have people who are coming back every other week. We just instated a membership program for people who are coming every other week. And within the last week, we've already had a lot of people sign up for it, you know? So they're coming back, and our price our price point that's like right in line, but it's not too crazy. It's encouraging people to come back every week, you know?
Right, right. And I think what I gather from this is that you're building a brand, right? You're not just building a product, which I would imagine in this industry, just the broader industry, a lot of people offer services, but not actual brand, right? They choose that brand because there's trust, there's equity that's built there. And you've done this in a relatively short period of time. Your vision is big, right? Turning this into 50 locations within the next decade, which it seems like a lot of time, but the years fly by very fast. And you know, the time and commitment that you have to open those locations in that period of time is a lot. What has been your sort of thought process and vision in building the Press Roots brand from the beginning?
So our mission is to make quality hair care easy and accessible for all women to achieve. And so in order to do that, we need to be in every major city across the country. You know, right now we are doing that for Dallas, but you don't know how many messages, calls we get. When are you coming to this city? When are you coming to Oakland? When are you coming to Detroit? When are you coming to New York? We need you. We need you. You know, this is a need. And so, yeah, so that has always been the vision. It's always been the vision to be throughout the country globally, to be honest with you, because textured hair is not just in this country, it's actually more outside of this country. So yeah, we want to be more than just, you know, we want to be that go-to place when it comes to textured hair care. From the education to the products to really everything. It's a lifestyle brand.
Yeah, and I think that says it perfectly. It's a lifestyle brand. I think some of the most iconic lifestyle brands have been able to do that to achieve their success and their brand equity through the experience, how they make people feel, how they identify with it. And I think you're definitely headed in that direction. I mentioned earlier when I was introducing you that, you know, Press Roots has, throughout the pandemic this year, has done rather well. How did you feel when the pandemic hit and introduced the new normal? How have you adapted the company through this historical period of transformation worldwide?
Yeah, it was scary. It was scary for any business. No one knows the scariest part was you just don't know. No one knows anything about this, right? We don't know how long, like we opened our business and we had to shut down 2 days later. So we didn't know if it was going to be a week, 2 weeks, a year. No one knew anything. We didn't know, you know, especially for our industry where you're touching people, you're touching someone, you are, the very core of our business is touch. You know, yeah. Touch. So I didn't know what was going to happen. But ultimately, when we were able to reopen, we're in Texas, and we were able, the state allowed salons to open up May 8th, and we decided to open up on May 16th. And when we decided to do it, of course, we did it by all, you know, we made it as safe as possible for people. You know, we're wearing the mask, we're social distancing, we are sanitizing and disinfecting and cleaning every surface that people are touching, washing our hands like crazy, taking our stylist temperatures, taking our customers' temperatures, really making it as safe as possible. Thankfully, none of our clients that we know of have had any cases, and none of our staff has had a case of COVID. So I think we're doing a great job. But I think what this has shown me is that, you know, there are salons all over Dallas that have been closing, even since reopening, including a lot of blow dry bars. But we've been doing really well. A lot of, you know, we're at max capacity. Whenever we open up a new, like if I get a stylist that says, hey, I can work on Saturday, as soon as I put them on the schedule, they're booked up for the entire day. We are literally at max capacity. We're booked up. Like someone called today and said, am I reading the website right? Your first appointment isn't until next Tuesday? That's correct. You know, like we are booked out over at least a week in advance every single week. And it just shows you that, you know, this is a need. And so A lot of people felt that at least for this demographic with highly textured hair, it's not a luxury. It's not something that people want to do. It's an essential service for this demographic. And so that's what I think, which we're getting ready to raise money again. And I think this time period has really shown, even more so than the pop-ups could have ever shown, how much of a critical need this business is.
Right. No, and it just excites me when I hear those kind of stats, like we're just fully booked up in advance during COVID-19. I mean, we've had, being at the Accelerator, have the chance to see a wide spectrum of, instances and outcomes for startups. Some of them had to close, some of them had to pivot entirely into a different business model, but yours has thrived. And I think that speaks truly to what you're building. But more fundamentally, something that I love to remind entrepreneurs in and out of the Accelerator is that when you're building something, you need to make sure that it addresses a real problem or a real need, because that allows you to build on a very strong foundation from the start. And I think you are a testament to that, and so is Pressed Roots. And I'm excited to see how this progresses through the raise. Wanted to shift the topic a little bit more to broader concept. Now more than ever, we are in a time and a place where diversity in all respects is a daily part of life. Why do you believe that diversity is necessary in general? And I'd say specifically, why do you think diversity is important in entrepreneurship?
So, in entrepreneurship, I would say, entrepreneurship doesn't discriminate. Like, there have been entrepreneurs of every race, every gender, from the beginning of time, right? The beginning of business, I think when it comes to the face of entrepreneurship, it has not been diverse though, because my parents were entrepreneurs, and, I just know a lot of people who I don't think there's ever been a time when it was really like, there's a group of people who don't start businesses. I think it's always been diverse. It's just the face of it. So in the face of who's getting money, in the face of, who's investing in businesses, I think those things are not diverse. And so I think it's really important for investors and, the face of entrepreneurship and all that stuff to be more diverse, because it does impact just how wealth is distributed and how everything kind of moves in our society, Yeah, I mean, when I just think about like my journey when it came to raising money, if there were other people who looked like me, who had my experience, who it probably would have been a lot easier. I hear so many different stories about people who raised $1 million off of a pitch deck, and to think about how, I had to, which, I don't think it should be easy for anybody, but just, there were a lot of hurdles, there was 2 years of proving out this concept, in order to really make people understand how great of a business this is. And I always think, what if I didn't have, there are a lot of people all over the world. I mean, I'm not when I've told people about my idea, there were a lot of Black women who said, I've thought that same thing, like if you are a woman, if you are a Black woman or a woman of color, a woman with textured hair, and you've heard about any of these blow dry bar concepts, you've thought, I wish that I could go to a place like this. But I do think a lot of people don't have the confidence because, it cost $600,000 to get this first store open, the way I wanted it to look, the way I wanted it to be executed. There's a high hurdle. It's not, I knew I didn't want it to just be one single salon. So the branding, all of the entire experience that we had to put behind it, it cost a lot of money. And I was fortunate to have access to this capital because of my networks, because of my educational experience. But I feel, I just always think about what about all of the other people who weren't as fortunate as I was to have access to these networks, that were able to, get in front of investors, I think a lot of investors listen to me, or, because of the fact that I had a great background. I think it's really important. And look how great this business is. There are a lot of people who have ideas and who have business concepts that are really value creating businesses that could do really, really well. And because the people who have access to the capital don't understand those concepts, don't understand those businesses, and don't understand the market, they're passing up on them. And these people aren't even in the same rooms as the people with the access to the capital. And so it's making it really tough. And so these businesses don't go beyond an idea or go beyond a small, a truck or a small neighborhood business. And so that's what I would say the importance of it, because there are a lot of really smart people who are trying to solve problems, for real problems. And because the people with access to the capital to make these ideas real don't understand them, they never become what they could be.
Right. Thank you for that. I think it's so powerful to hear it from your perspective. And I think it really resonates with what a lot of I've seen with other entrepreneurs from diverse backgrounds who, like you said, in the face of it, don't seem like the standard, right, when it comes to raising capital as an entrepreneur. And I think it speaks to the vast need for openness, for open minds among the investment community, right? Because it's fascinating how you were telling earlier about the market opportunity and how many investors, VCs, especially in angels, couldn't immediately compute that there's an opportunity there, let alone one that's like a 10x venture fundable opportunity. But that takes perspective. And as you've suggested and illustrated, there's not enough of that perspective in the investment establishment. And we need more of it. We need more investors who are open to looking for new opportunities. We need more people of color in the investment community and as entrepreneurs. And I think that's going to take time, but we also need more people who aspire to it. In terms of the current situation in the country, what is one thing that keeps you up at night worried about the future that you wish other leaders in the world took seriously?
The stuff that keeps me up on all night is really about my business. And so I don't think other leaders in the world really care about that stuff. But I guess if I was going to say something that I wish other leaders in the world really cared about, it would be what we were just talking about. There's so much opportunity for people. If they don't, I mentioned it a little bit in what we were talking about previously, but basically, if you don't fit a certain prototype, if you are if you are a woman of color, if you are maybe even whatever, if you're not a white male, if you are in any other category, you have to be this. You have to fit in this box to even be looked at, thought of, considered by an investor, to even get a seat at the table. A lot of times, there are exceptions, but a lot of times it's really hard. It's really hard for people. And it makes me sad just to think about all of the missed opportunities, just because there's this idea of what a smart person looks like. And people are concerned about putting their money behind people that don't fit that prototype, and they're missing out on a lot of money.
Yeah, no, and that's really interesting. In your viewpoint, what does that say about the kind of future that we're building right now?
Well, I think right now we're in a time when people are becoming more aware than they've ever been before of their biases, and people are starting to check themselves. So to be honest with you, I think that things are better now than they've ever been in the past in terms of the self-awareness that people have around these things and these topics. So I think the future can only get better. You know, I don't think that I could have built something like Press Roots 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think I would have had the opportunity. Maybe, I don't know. I do feel like I had a lot of opportunities. Like when I graduated from business school, I joined an Accelerator program that was for women of color, you know? And that gave me access to meet a lot of people. So, I mean, just these different opportunities that people are, you know, they're starting to realize, they're starting to realize the dynamic in the industry. And so I think just the fact that we even are able to have this conversation right now, these are conversations that we never really would have had before. So I think the future is bright.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the optimism. I think we need that perspective, and we need to believe that the future is bright and that we are making it better. What impact do you wish to make on this planet, especially as an entrepreneur? And I know what your vision is for Press Roots, but talking big picture here.
I want to give people hope that they can do it. I hope I could inspire people to do what they want to do, you know, go for it. I hope that I can inspire people to do that. I was always someone who, I didn't really take any risks. I didn't really, I was always very driven. I always had goals, but I never really pursued something because I cared about it and because I loved it and because I liked it. It was for different reasons. And so I hope that my path can inspire someone at some point to take the risk, take the plunge, do what you want, do what you care about, do what you're passionate about.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I guess tying it to that and to close this talk off, what is the single most important piece of advice that you can offer to the next generation of entrepreneurs, innovators, and investors? And specifically, I would say to people who don't come from traditional backgrounds.
It would be that you deserve a seat at the table. Don't ever let anyone make you feel that you don't belong somewhere, because your opinion, your experience gives you the unique perspective, and the valuable perspective that people need to hear. And so, yeah, it would really just be that you belong. If you are in a room, you belong there. Don't ever feel that you don't deserve to be there. If you got accepted somewhere, if you got an award somewhere, don't ever think this was a mistake, this was a fluke. You're there for a reason, and you need to own it and make your voice heard, because you're there for a reason.
I love that. And it's powerful. It's very, very powerful message that I believe in, and that I wish more people would believe in. And I think hopefully, you know, this talk will reach the hearts, the minds, and the souls of many people here at Demo Day, but also beyond that. Piersten, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been such a real pleasure to learn about your story, listen to your insights, perspectives, and wisdom. Thank you, and we really hope that you'll join us again in the future.
Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you.
Here.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who tuned in for Day 4 Demo Day. We have a very big day packed with lots of companies pitching, panels, discussions. So welcome to Day 4, and we hope you enjoy the rest of today.